This offseason, we'll have a lot of moves for the Houston Texans internally in their front office. Why hiring in-house is such a bad idea.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to a Wednesday episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your own football franchise? Then this is the game for you. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code Locked On in all caps. Get in the game right now, Ultimate GM, in the App Store. I'm John Hickman, joined by Cody Davis. Before we talk about the Houston Texans, tragedy struck the NFL on Monday night during the Monday Night Football game, the Buffalo Bills versus the Cincinnati Bengals, where we saw safety Hamlin came out of Pitt from Pittsburgh, having a good season for the Buffalo Bills, have been starting since week 3, I believe, going to cardiac arrest on the field after a tackle. And we got out Tuesday's show. We recorded that on Monday night before the game, before we, saw what happened, and it was already produced and scheduled to go out. But I want to start off this show. Cody and I both want to start off this show by just saying that football is a game, which brings a lot of emotions, a lot of fun, a lot of downs, a lot of ups, everything that comes with a game like the NFL, like football as the sport. However, when things like that happen on the field, when the possibility of a lost life, CPR has to be brought on the field, right? And when CPR is involved, and I know from personal experience, when CPR or an AED is involved, it's life or death situation. And so when we have moments like those, I think it's important for everybody to step away from the game. I think it's important for everybody to step away from what goes on inside of that game and everybody to tap into their humanity, which saw a lot of that with the initial reaction. We saw a lot of inhumane comments with the initial reaction, regardless of where it came from. But thoughts and prayers to the Hamlin family, to Hamlin. Those are one of those moments where, and I saw it live, you just hate to see it, but everybody do need to send prayers his way, as updates happen. And there was an update actually earlier today, as we record this on Tuesday. The update that was sent out by the family of DeMar Hamlin said, on behalf of our family, we want to express our sincere gratitude for the love and support shown for DeMar during this challenging time. We are deeply moved by the players' kind words and donations from fans around the country. We also want to acknowledge the dedicated first responders and healthcare professionals at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center who have provided exceptional care to DeMar. We feel so blessed to be a part of the Buffalo Bills organization and to have their support. We also want to thank Coach Taylor and the Bengals for everything they've done. Your generosity and compassion mean the world to us. Please keep them in our prayers. We will release updates as soon as we have them. Thank you, the Hamlin family. So that's the latest news. Once more comes out, we'll discuss. And to see the toy drive that was initially just $2.5K, now over, I think, at the time of this recording, near $4 million. Speechless. Remarkable.
You said it best, John. The only thing I just want to add for the Houston Texans side of things, they did cancel all workouts and walkthroughs that they had scheduled on normally on Tuesdays. They canceled that. As for what's going to take place today, it seems like the Texans are just going to go through a walkthrough. Normally, that is the first day of practice. And for those of you who don't know, the NFL will continue to go through week 18 as planned. So it seemed like the Houston Texans are probably just going to go through a walkthrough later on today. We will have an opportunity to hear from Coach Lovie Smith and certain players to get their thoughts on the situation at hand. But, once again, prayers to that young man's family and also his teammates as well, because when you work with somebody so close and for so long, sometimes you be around, your teammates and your colleagues and your coworkers more so than your own family at times. So, please keep the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals in your prayers as well, because overall it was just a traumatic situation and we just hoping nothing but the best.
Absolutely. And shout out to Coach Taylor, Zach Taylor, and Sean McDermott. Those two men, being leaders of men in that moment, made the decision to, hey, man, we're not playing. Impossible to play. And so a lot of respect and love goes to those coaches. And when we come back, we will discuss the Houston Texans and the coaching staff, the coaching search, and what should go on this offseason. And to circle back to our opening statement about the MyGM app, today's episode is brought to you by MyGM, the mobile football game app that you can find in the app stores or online. You ever dreamed about becoming an NFL general manager and managing your own football franchise? Well, your dream can kind of come true in this game. And this game is definitely for you guys that want to be GMs out there. You can manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. You're responsible for hiring the right coaches and coordinators, which is kind of funny, trading players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft and all the ups and downs of a season. Our Locked On Texan listeners can get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store. That's Locked On, all caps. So make sure you check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the App Store. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. I'm really advocating for a lot of Texan fans, that especially that listen to the show, of course. But I know you guys are kind of torn on the general manager here in town with Nick Caserio. So the MyGM app, I would love for you guys to download that app. And let's see who can do a better job. The fans on the app, where you can get a 100% free boost, so check it out, or what Nick Caserio can do next year, comparing and also combining what he's done the last 2 years is very interesting. But one thing Nick Caserio has to do is get it right this upcoming offseason, whether that's with your head coach, whether that's with your coordinators, whether that's with position coaches. Change needs to happen. That's what Sam Cook said. Change don't come. But when will it come for the Houston Texans? Presumably in the next couple of weeks. One game left next Sunday. Black Monday is after that. I wouldn't say directly or exactly on that Monday, but I do believe that heads will start to roll after the last game of the season. Cody wanted to talk about, why it is imperative for this Texan franchise to get it right. Now, that includes the possibility of Lovie Smith being moved on from as head coach. And let me just say this. I've said this before. If Lovie Smith – if there's a departure, it'll either be Lovie Smith firing himself or stepping away, or I said this before as well, that Romeo Crennel route where we'll just move you up as some part of our advisor team. But then we have to look at the coordinators on both sides of the ball. A lot of important decisions for this Texas team, Cody, and I think your thoughts are going to be super strong about this.
Yeah, and if by any chance, and we will know in the next 6 or 7 days, but if by any chance the Texans have to go through another head coaching search, I just want it to be a genuine coaching search. And what I mean by that is I don't want to see this organization interview people like Hines Ward and interview people like Josh McCown. Well, you know so goddamn well that they're not even qualified. That's like
Frustration building.
it's because it's stupidity at this point. And look, this is I hate the NFL head coaching search because every single year we start hearing about the Rooney rule and we see teams, i.e., like the Houston Texans, like they did last year with the interview process of Hines Ward's, they're just using it just to check them off the box. And when you go back and you take a look at the last two head coaching searches that the Texans had, both this year and last year, there were qualified candidates where you might think to yourself, you know what? The Texans will be in a better situation if they hire that guy. One of the guys that comes to mind was Leslie Frazier. He was a candidate that the Houston Texans like, and you end up with David Culley. Everyone knows that regardless of who wanted this guy, Josh McCown was this close. And for those of you guys who are listening other than watching, I'm using the acute angle. If you paid attention into geometry, you know what that means. That's what less than 90 or 10% or something like that. Josh McCown was so close of getting his head coaching job to the point where Brian Flores, another qualified candidate, by the way, if it wasn't for his lawsuit, we'd be sitting here talking about frustrations with McCown and how he wasn't qualified. John, we talked about Nick Caserio on yesterday, and I do believe that this is probably the most important offseason in franchise history because I do not believe that this organization can go through another appalling season like the last two they just had, more so this year, to where whoever's your head coach or whoever they hire, it has to be the right guy that can take this team from point A to point B and hopefully to point C.
So my thoughts about this is I think you should not hire in-house. Right?
That's another issue I didn't think about.
Right. And one of the names that if I were to say a name that I'm okay with being a coordinator, being, bumped up or hired to be a coordinator that's in-house or I guess a promotion will probably be Joe Dana, right? Hired this offseason coming over from the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think he's done. We talked about it last week. I think he's done a very good job with the safeties that he has on the roster, and the rookie year that Jalen Petrie has been having, I think has been phenomenal. But I don't think that should overshadow the work that he's done with Jonathan Owens. But that's the only name that I would even look at considering. But I'm happy with saying that, and I'm okay with saying that the Houston Texans should not hire internally. I think that, listen, you already hired internally when you look at year one of Nick Caserio's tenure to year two. And in result of hiring internally and promoting internally, you've declined. So, process of elimination. Let's try to hire externally, and maybe that will help get this team on the right track. And I'm a firm believer of this. I think Houston's going to have a very difficult time firing Lovie Smith. Moving on from Lovie Smith as the head coach. And again, I've been on record by saying if it does, it's either going to be him leaving, because he sounded very frustrated the last several weeks, last 2 months of football, or him being promoted out of the head coaching spot. Either case, new head coach going to come in, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. That's going to happen regardless of what Houston does with this head coaching search. The change of OC and DC needs to happen, and I don't think that needs to happen or be replaced by any guy that already is in the building. My personal opinions. Nick Caserio, listen, he has a very difficult offseason. Between Nick Caserio here in Houston, the Saints in New Orleans, and I want to throw in the 49ers because I think they may have the most interesting offseason when I look at Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, and Brock Purdy, who's been playing some damn good football for the 49ers and helped lead them to the playoffs. By the way, Kyle Shanahan has the most impeccable offensive scheme that I've ever seen. Maybe that I've ever seen. I don't know. But what he does with offense is brilliant. But just, to wrap it up, yeah, man, nobody in-house should be able to get promoted outside of Joe Dana. And we've seen improvement from his guys, especially since Jalen Petrie has been playing more free safety than strong. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have skills, values, and experience to help you achieve your goals. Best part about LinkedIn Jobs, it helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insight from your job post, company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them faster and for free. So listen, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Wednesday installment of Locked On Texans. Before we get out of here, everybody is talking about the Houston Texans getting that number 1 pick, and understandably so why. We here on the Locked On Texans podcast truly do believe that they need a quarterback. Unfortunately, it breaks my heart to say it, and I feel like crying. Davis Mills is not that answer. I'm sorry, and I apologize. We've been hoodwinked and bamboozled this entire offseason leading up to the 2022 campaign. However, John, I'm under the belief that the Texans should at least consider going a different option of trying to get their hands on a new franchise quarterback, because I do believe there are some quality players who could come in at that position and be an upgrade from Davis Mills and be a long-term upgrade from Davis Mills. And that way it could still give you an opportunity to use other draft picks to build the rest of the roster.
That's what you're doing. You are,
and there's one guy I'm looking at.
You are one of those
on the move.
Derek Carr, Jimmy G. You are one of those guys to bring in a bridge quarterback.
No, I wouldn't say bridge quarterback, because I think there are some guys out there that might be a long-term. No, not Gardner. Which Gardner would be a nice, bridge quarterback.
Which speaks to the quarterback room right now.
I know, right? I'm thinking about this one guy. I'm waiting to see how this offseason is going to work. His name is Lamar Jackson. Might be on the move.
Get ready for Lamar Jackson to get franchise. Baltimore has to pay Roquan and Lamar. They traded for Roquan, and Roquan has done amazing things for their defense. But this was last year, so they got to sign him. They're not going to trade what they traded to give away and not re-sign him. They're going to get that deal done. I think they're going to franchise tag Lamar.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, though, John. Let's say if, the Ravens and Lamar, they say, you know what, we can't come to agreement. And Lamar said he wanted to explore his option. And the Texans, they have one of the deepest cap rooms in the league this upcoming season. With that number 1 overall pick, I mean, I wouldn't be mad with the idea. I don't know why you're looking like that. I'm pretty sure it's going to take that for Baltimore to get their hands. I mean, it's Lamar Jackson. He's already a top 5 quarterback in this league. Come on now.
Yeah, man.
Come on.
I mean, then why would Lamar come to Houston? Lamar Jackson's deal.
Nobody thought Deshaun Watson was going to go to Cleveland, but it took a guaranteed $235 million to change his mind, because he was definitely about 2 minutes away from going back home to Atlanta.
Yeah, you remember when he had the Cleveland Brown jersey, and then If you zoomed on that picture, he had the Falcons jersey already. But
Exactly.
Listen, I think there is a real possibility here that we have to play around with. Houston wins on Sunday. The Bears win. And I believe that scenario would land Chicago #1, Houston #2. And then the thought is, well, Chicago doesn't need a quarterback. They have their quarterback. Chicago needs to either they can look at that #1 pick and find value out of a player, or they can look at the #1 pick and find value in more picks. And so they can trade back and allow teams to jump up to potentially get their quarterback at #1. Why I'm not worried about that for Houston is because after Saturday's game, you now have two valuable quarterbacks coming out: Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. What I've been telling you guys this whole time, Houston likes CJ Stroud. Now I think that Bryce Young is going to make it difficult for Houston to just say we're going to lock in on CJ. But what I'm getting at is if they don't get #1, then they'll be okay at #2. Either a team is going to trade up to Chicago and get their quarterback, which leaves them with a great option at #2 at quarterback, or whatever would happen. But I'm not necessarily worried because I think that for Houston's case, this is almost a can't miss situation, right? In terms of drafting the right player. Not saying that player we're going to turn out to be a boom or bust, but you can't mess it up.
You can. New York did it 2 years ago. Because like you said, and I 100% agree, Justin Fields should definitely be in New York.
Well, if the Houston Texans decide to draft Will Levis, this may be my last year.
This is this franchise, man. There's been
Will
several
Levis,
times.
Anthony Richardson is a Houston Texan because of a first-round draft pick. I may either leave completely, or I may be the worst villain the franchise has ever seen. I'm telling you that off the rip. But just really quick before we get out of here, I don't think Houston can mess this up, guys.
Are you sure?
Thanks for making the Locked On Texans your first listen today.
Are you
Make
sure?
For your second. I'm positive they can't mess it up.
That was like what 15 years ago. I'm about to bring it up because I'm still mad about that. You had an opportunity to get the hometown hero, the best quarterback in the draft, and you ended up getting Mario Williams over Vince Young. I'm still mad about that.
Be the better player.
No, he was not. But you know what Jeff Fisher did to him in Tennessee, and I'm never going to let that go.
Thanks for making the Locked On Texans your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you the local insight you love to the national spotlight with daily conversations on the biggest stories. Locked On NFL is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm John Hickman. Thank you guys for checking out today's show. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texans. And as always, go on over to YouTube, comment, like, share, but overall, subscribe.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. Guys, I encourage you all to go on YouTube and check out, I think it was the 2010 Pro Bowl when Vince Young connected with Andre Johnson for like a 60-yard touchdown in a game. And yeah, that should have been happening inside at the time that was called the Reliance Stadium, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that should have been happening every single Sunday inside Reliance. Oh, by the way, just go back and take a look at the rushing game-winning touchdown that Vince Young had against the Houston Texans inside Reliance Stadium. And you let me know whether or not they made the right decision by drafting Mario Williams. There's certain things in sports history I will not let go, and that's one of them. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.